I wake before the light does. For a moment, I can't remember where I am. Then I feel the cold pressing against my shoulder through the canvas of my bedroll, and I hear it, that low, patient sound of wind moving through something enormous. Not rustling, not whistling, just moving. The way wind sounds when it passes through a cathedral. I sit up slowly. The fire I built last night is down to embers, a soft orange breathing in a ring of stones. Beyond it, the forest is still black, but the sky above the canopy has started to turn that deep, bruised blue that means dawn is coming. I pull my wool shirt tighter around my chest and listen. There it is again, that sound. I've been camped on this ridge for 3 days now, looking for the right spot. I came into these mountains with a vague idea and a pack full of tools, and I've been walking, measuring, watching. Most of what I've found has been beautiful but wrong. Too close to the trail, too exposed, too small. I need a tree, not just any tree. I need the tree. And yesterday, near sunset, I think I finally found it. I pull on my boots and tighten the laces. The leather is stiff from the cold. I tie off my tool belt, feel the familiar weight of the folding saw against my hip, and step out of the lean-to I rigged between 2 cedars. The forest at this hour has a silence that isn't really silent. There are layers to it. The slow creak of old wood settling. The drip of last night's dew-off needles. Somewhere far below, water moving over stone. I follow the same narrow animal path I found yesterday, picking my way between ferns heavy with moisture, my breath clouding ahead of me. The path drops, then it drops again, and then the trees open, and I'm standing at the edge of the canyon. I stop. I always stop here. The canyon is maybe 200 feet across, with vertical walls of gray stone streaked green and black with moss and lichen. Cuts through the forest like something that was torn, not carved. The bottom is so far down that I can't see it. Just blue shadow fading into deeper shadow, and the faint, constant whisper of a river that sounds more like a rumor than a fact. A thin mist hangs across the gap, slow and drifting, and growing from the lip of the canyon, leaning out over the void like it's trying to see what's below, is the tree. I don't know what kind it is exactly. Something between a fir and a cedar, older than anything has a right to be. This trunk is wider than I can reach around 3 times over. But it isn't the trunk that stopped me yesterday. It's the branches. One of them, in particular. A single massive limb that extends horizontally out over the canyon. Not down, not up, just straight out, for what must be 60 feet before it tapers and splits. It is thicker at its base than most full-grown trees. It is, by any reasonable measurement, impossible. A branch that shouldn't exist. But it does. I step closer. I put my hand on the trunk. The bark is deep and furrowed, rough as broken stone, and it's warm, already warm, even before the sun has risen. I don't know how. I don't question it. I tilt my head back and look up along the great horizontal branch, and in my mind I can already see it. The platform, the walls, the ropes, the shelter hanging in the air, cradled by this tree, suspended over nothing. I exhale slowly. All right, I say out loud. My voice sounds strange in the quiet. Let's see if you'll let me. The first day is just looking, just planning. I walk the perimeter of the tree a dozen times. I study the branch from every angle I can reach. I climb up the trunk about 30 feet using the deep furrows in the bark as holds, and I sit in the crook where the great limb meets the body of the tree. From here, the canyon opens up beneath me like a held breath. I can feel the limb beneath me flex very, very slightly as I shift my weight. Not weakness, just life. This tree is alive, and it moves the way living things move. I pull out my notebook and a short pencil. I sketch. I measure distances with a length of knotted cord. I think about load. I think about wind. I think about what happens if I'm wrong. The shelter I'm going to build will not touch the ground. It will not sit on any ledge. It will hang, suspended entirely by ropes lashed to the great limb, held in tension, free to sway. It will be a cube of wood and canvas and sky, floating 100 feet above the forest floor that stretches away below the canyon. A room with no floor under it, just air. I close the notebook. My heart is beating harder than the work has earned. Stupid idea, I say softly, and I smile, because I've already decided. The first real work begins the next morning. I hike down into the forest below the canyon rim, on the side away from the drop, and I start gathering materials. The shelter will be small. I'm doing this alone, and everything I build I have to hoist up myself. So every board has to earn its weight. I find a stand of straight young spruce and take down 4 of them with my hand axe and folding saw, working slowly, resting often, breathing deep. The rhythm comes back into my body quickly. Chop, rest, breathe, chop. The sound of a sharp axe meeting live wood is one of my favorite sounds in the world. It's clean. It's honest. Each strike chunks away a pale, wet wedge, and the tree leans a little more, and when it finally gives, there's a slow creaking groan, and then the soft whump of it settling into the moss. I limb each trunk. I drag them one by one, over the course of 3 trips, back up to the base of the great tree. My shoulders burn by the end. My palms are raw even through the leather of my gloves. But there's a pile of clean, straight poles at the base of the tree now, and that pile is the beginning of everything. I sit down on one of them and drink water from my canteen. The sun has climbed over the canyon wall across the gap, and the mist is gone, and the light is pouring in long gold bars through the trees. I watch a pair of ravens turn a lazy circle over the canyon, calling to each other. They see me. They don't seem to mind. All right, I say to them, don't laugh. Hoisting anything up to the great limb is the problem I've been turning over in my head for 2 days. I can climb the tree easily enough. I can't climb it carrying a 20-foot spruce pole. So first I climb with rope. I loop a long coil of climbing line around my shoulder and go up the trunk the way I did before, slow and patient, pressing my palms and boots into the deep grooves of the bark. When I reach the great limb, I crawl out along it on my hands and knees. The limb is wide enough that I could walk it if I wanted to, but I don't want to. Not yet. I can feel the void on both sides now. I can feel the canyon pulling the way heights always pull. I keep my center low. 20 feet out along the limb, I stop at a good spot. A place where the branch is still immensely thick but where the bark has a natural groove. I lash a thick loop of webbing here, cinching it tight, and I clip a heavy pulley into the loop. I thread the climbing line through the pulley and let both ends drop. The ropes fall and fall and fall. They unspool in a long, slow sigh into the air over the canyon, and then they hang there, swaying gently, touching the forest floor 100 feet below on the near side, where my pile of poles is waiting. I climb back down. At the bottom, I tie a bowline around the first spruce pole, dead center, so it will rise level. I wrap the other end of the rope around my forearm, set my boots, and I pull. The pole lifts. It rises slowly, turning in the air, shedding bits of bark. Hand over hand, I haul it up, and I feel the pulley above me take the strain and ease it, turning my downward pull into upward lift. The pole rises past the ferns, past the lower branches, past the 50-foot mark. My arms shake. My breath comes in short, controlled bursts. I brace my boot against a root and I pull, and finally the pole bumps gently against the great limb. I tie off the rope around a cleat I drove into the trunk for this purpose, and I let my arms hang at my sides and just breathe for a full minute. My heart is pounding in my throat. Sweat runs down the center of my back, cooling immediately in the canyon breeze. 1, I say. There are 19 more poles to go. The days begin to blur after that. I wake before dawn, I eat something simple, oats, dried fruit, a boiled egg if I have one left, and I work until the sun is too low to see by. I hoist, I climb, I lash, I descend, I hoist again. Each pole is a small argument with gravity, and I win each one slowly. By the end of the first week, I have all 20 poles up on the great limb, bundled and lashed in place near the base of the platform I'm planning. I've built a small working perch there, just a few cross-lashed pieces, enough to sit on safely while I work. From this perch, the forest floor is a soft green blur below me. When I look across the canyon, I'm eye level with the tops of the trees on the other side. Ravens pass below me, clouds pass above, and the great limb of the tree, my limb, stretches out past my perch into the open air, steady as stone. I start on the platform. The platform is the heart of the whole shelter. Everything else will hang from it, be built on top of it, be braced against it. It has to be strong, but it also has to be light. I've designed it as a lattice, for main beams running the length of the platform, cross-braced every 2 feet with smaller members, all lashed together with wet rawhide that will shrink and tighten as it dries. I don't use a single nail. Nails rust. Nails split wood. Rope and lashings flex. Lashings breathe. Lashings are what this tree will understand. The work is deeply satisfying. I sit out on my perch with the sun on my shoulders and I fit the notches one by one, testing each joint 4 times before I bind it. The saw rasps softly through wood, back and forth, sending little curls of pale shavings drifting down into the canyon. I imagine them falling for a long, long time before they find the bottom. The sound of my mallet is muffled by the distance. There's nothing nearby for it to echo off, so every strike is a single soft thud that just disappears into the air. A pair of small brown birds I can't identify start coming around in the afternoons. They land on the poles I'm not currently working with and tilt their heads at me, chirp once and fly off. By the 3rd day, they're letting me get close. By the 5th, one of them lands on my tool belt while I'm sitting still, pecks at the buckle and flies away again. I laugh out loud, and the sound surprises me. I haven't heard it in a while. You want to help? I ask the next one that comes by. I'll put you in charge of inspecting the lashings. The bird blinks at me, flies off. Fair enough, I say, and I go back to work. On day 10, the platform is finished. It's roughly 10 feet by 12 feet, lashed tight to the great limb at 3 points, with 2 long support beams extending back to the trunk of the tree itself and bound there with heavy rope. The whole thing sits about 8 feet out from the trunk, with nothing beneath it but 100 feet of open air. I stand on it for the first time, carefully, my hand resting on the limb, and I bounce slightly on the balls of my feet. It gives the barest amount, the way a good floor should. It doesn't creak. It doesn't complain. It just holds. I walk to the far edge. I stand there for a long time. The canyon is in front of me, the mist below, the raven pair doing their slow circles far beneath my feet. I sit down with my legs dangling over the edge. I don't usually do that, but today I do, and I feel something settle in my chest. A long, quiet exhale of something I didn't know I was holding. Hi, I say to the canyon. Says nothing back, and that's exactly right. The weather breaks on day 12. I wake to the sound of wind, and I know before I open my eyes that it's a bad one. The canvas of my lean-to is snapping taut and slack, and the trees above me are making that high, rushing roar that big pines make when the wind is really moving. I crawl out to check the sky. It's the color of wet slate, moving fast, low, close. A storm front coming down off the mountains. I can see it churning between the peaks. I don't climb that day. I stand at the edge of the canyon and I watch the great tree bend. Not much, just the top. The great limb moves slowly up and down, the way the arm of a very old, very patient creature might move. My platform, lashed to that limb, rises and falls with it. 6 inches, 8 inches, back down, back up. The ropes I left hanging from the pulley trace long curving arcs in the air. The rain starts an hour later and comes down hard for the rest of the day and all through the night. I sit under my lean-to and I listen to it, and I think about the lashing soaking through, about the rawhide tightening even further, about the poles drinking the water and getting heavier. By morning, the storm is gone. The sky is washed clean, and everything in the forest is dripping and gleaming. I climb up slowly to check the platform. It's fine. Not just fine, it's better. The rawhide has pulled itself even tighter overnight, and the joints are more rigid than they were yesterday. The wood is dark with rain. The great limb smells like something ancient and alive. A small pool of water has collected in one of the lashing hollows, and a single yellow leaf is floating in it like an offering. I tip the leaf into my palm and set it on one of the beams to dry. Thank you, I say to the tree. I'm not embarrassed anymore about talking to it. The walls go up over the next week. I planned 4 walls and a roof, a simple rectangular cabin, small, just enough for a man to sleep in, sit in, hide from weather in. But as I start lashing the vertical poles into place along the edges of the platform, I realize I don't want it closed. I want air. I want to see. So I changed the design. 3 of the walls get framed up solid, paneled with thin planks I split from a fallen cedar I find down near the stream. I lash the planks in overlapping rows, a technique I learned years ago from an old man who built boats, so that rain will run down the outside of the shelter and never find a seam. The wood still smells sharp and red and alive when I cut it. The smell gets into my shirt, into my hair. But the 4th wall, the wall facing the canyon, I leave open. I build it as a low railing, chest high, with thick balusters of split spruce lashed tight. Beyond the railing, there's just sky, just canyon, just the world, framed. I sit cross-legged inside the half-finished shelter on the evening of day 19. The 3 walls are up. The open wall faces west, and the setting sun is turning the whole canyon molten orange and deep purple. The great limb above me glows bronze. The ropes glow bronze. My hands, resting on my knees, glow bronze. I don't move for a long time. I hadn't planned on this view. Or maybe I had, and I hadn't let myself admit it. Either way, it's here, and it is the reason. I roll out my bedroll on the platform inside the 3 walls, and I sleep up here for the first time that night. The shelter sways in the night breeze. I can feel it. A slow, gentle rocking side to side, maybe an inch in each direction. Like being on a boat at anchor, like being held. I sleep the best I've slept in months. The roof is the hardest part. Not because of the construction is simple. A ridge pole lashed between 2 vertical supports, rafters angling down from it. Thin cedar shakes split by hand and laid in tight, overlapping rows. I've done this before. It's hard because of where I have to do it. To set the ridge pole, I have to climb above the platform, out onto smaller, higher branches of the great tree, with ropes around my waist and my heart in my mouth. I tie myself off 3 separate ways every time I move. I don't trust the height. I know the height doesn't trust me. The ridge pole goes up on day 23. I lash it at both ends, double-check every knot, and then I slowly, carefully lower myself back down to the platform. When my boots touch the platform again, my legs feel strange. I sit down on the floor of the shelter and I drink a full canteen of water in one go. And then I just sit there, my back against a wall, watching my hands shake. Okay, I say. Okay. The rafters and the shakes go up over the next 5 days, and every day I get a little less afraid. By the time I'm hammering in the last of the cedar shakes, I'm standing on the roof beam, barefoot, moving with an easy confidence I wouldn't have believed a week ago. The body learns. The body learns what the mind is still arguing with. On day 28, the shelter is sealed against the weather. 3 walls, a roof, a floor, and an open face looking out over the canyon. I stand back on the great limb and I look at what I've made. It's small. From a distance, it would look like nothing, like a box tucked into the canopy of a huge tree, barely visible. But up close, it is extraordinary. The wood is warm gold in the late-day sun. The lashings are pulled tight and even. The shakes on the roof overlap in neat, scaled rows like feathers. The ropes holding it all to the great limb are thick, tarred, steady. It moves gently in the breeze. A living thing. I say. I start on the inside work the next morning. A small platform bed along the back wall, framed and lashed and layered with spruce boughs and a wool blanket. A low shelf under the open railing. For my notebook, my canteen, a candle, a hook in the roof beam to hang a lantern, a tiny wood stove. This I hauled up in pieces, which was its own multi-day adventure. Bolted to a flat stone slab in the corner, with a metal flue rising out through a carefully cut opening in the roof, flashed with tin and sealed with tar. The stove is the part I'm most proud of and most nervous about. A fire in a wooden box hanging 100 feet over a canyon is not an obviously good idea. But the stove is sealed. The flue is tight. I lit a test fire on the ground for 2 hours before I took it apart and brought it up, and I trust it. I trust it today anyway. We'll see how I feel when the wind picks up. I cook my first meal in the shelter on day 32. There's nothing fancy. Rice and beans and a piece of smoked trout I traded for in the nearest town a week ago. But I cook it in a small iron pot on the wood stove, and the stove ticks softly as it heats, and the smoke rises up through the flue and drifts out over the canyon in a thin blue line that I can watch from inside through the open wall. I eat sitting on the floor with the bowl in my lap, my back against the doorway, my legs stretched out onto the platform outside. The sun is setting again. The canyon is orange and rose and indigo. A pair of ravens, I think they're the same pair, come curling up through the gold air and pass directly in front of my shelter, not 10 feet away, their black wings cutting the light. One of them looks at me. I swear it does. I raise my spoon to it. Evening, I say. The raven banks and slides away into the canyon. I live in the shelter through the end of the season. The days get shorter. The light gets more sideways. The canyon fills with mist most mornings now, deep and still, so that when I wake up the shelter feels like it's floating in a cloud. I read in the evenings by lantern light. I sharpen my tools on the whetstone from my belt, slow and patient. I add small things, a peg for my coat, a second shelf, a little carved bird I find time to whittle one rainy afternoon that I set on the railing looking out at the canyon. Nothing goes wrong. That's the strange thing. I kept waiting for something to go wrong, for a rope to fray, for a storm to be too much, for the great limb to decide it had tolerated me long enough. But the shelter holds. The tree holds. The canyon holds us both. On the last night before the first snow, I make a fire in the stove and I lie on my platform bed with the door slid open to the canyon. The stove is ticking. The shelter is swaying 1 inch, 2 inches, 1 inch, 2 inches, the slow heartbeat of something suspended and at peace. I think about the morning I stood at the canyon edge and looked at this tree for the first time. That man and this man feel like different people. Or maybe the same person finally arrived. I don't know if anyone will ever see this shelter. Probably not. That's all right. It wasn't really made to be seen. It was made to see from. I turn my head on the bedroll and I look out at the canyon, at the last light fading from the stone walls, at the first stars showing above the far rim. The great limb above me creaks once. A deep, soft, settling sound. The sound of a living thing shifting its weight. Good night, I say to the tree. I close my eyes. The shelter sways gently in the dark. A small lit window hanging in the enormous, quiet air, and somewhere far below, a river I cannot see keeps on moving through the stone.